faithfully conveying value and exploring great books worldwide. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today I'll be interpreting the book Think Like a Rocket Scientist. How do you think rocket scientists' thinking differs from ordinary people? Well, feel free to leave your comments below. On September 12, 1962, Rice University's stadium in the U.S. was packed full. President Kennedy gave his "We choose to go to the moon" speech, promising to send humans to the moon and bring them back safely by 1970, using rockets.
Public opinion erupted instantly.
Because before Kennedy's speech, many technical standards for moon landing hadn't even been set globally.
U.S. astronauts had never worked outside spacecraft, never docked in space, and even the metals for rockets hadn't been invented yet.
As a NASA official put it, we didn't even know how to calculate Earth's orbit, let alone moon rocket trajectories.
But who would have thought? In 1969, 7 years after Kennedy's announcement, Armstrong landed on the moon, taking a giant leap for mankind.
Such a huge leap in human history is often called a triumph of technology. But according to the author, Ozan Varol, it's even more a victory of rocket thinking. Here's a quick intro to the author, Ozan Varol. He was part of the Mars Exploration Rover mission and worked on the Cassini-Huygens mission, the largest planetary probe ever. So, he's also the youngest tenured professor at Lewis and Clark Law School in Oregon, U.S. The book sparked a global rocket thinking wave upon release, with Ray Dalio, Steve Jobs, and Elon Musk as key practitioners. So, what exactly is rocket thinking? The author summarizes 9 thinking principles used by scientists to make the impossible possible during rocket development as rocket thinking. Summarized as rocket thinking, even ordinary people uninterested in rockets can transform their lives by learning it. To turn impossible into possible, the author says, first break cognitive boundaries and spark creativity, just like igniting a rocket to lift off safely. Next, we accelerate idea implementation, just like rockets burning fuel for thrust while shedding stages to reduce weight, ultimately escaping Earth's gravity to enter lunar orbit. Finally, you must learn to unleash potential through successes and failures, much like every landing holds immense value regardless of outcome. So, I'll now explore the book in 3 parts. Part 1, breaking cognitive boundaries. Part 2, accelerating idea implementation. Part 3, unleashing potential through outcomes. First, Part 1, breaking cognitive boundaries. Why must rocket scientists do this? Because many things we take for granted on Earth get completely overturned in space. What? For example, on the moon, your mass stays the same, but gravity's only 1/6 Earth's. A light jump sends you soaring. Or consider the moon's far side, where lunar magnetism blocks radio waves, rendering instruments useless. Spacecraft contain millions of components and hundreds of miles of wiring, so when hurtling through space, they face countless unknown risks. This demands scientists dance with uncertainty. Only by overcoming its anxiety can they break boundaries with reason and courage. Now let's dive deeper into uncertainty. At JPL in California, you'd see mission control. Scientists munching peanuts by the bag while watching Mars landing feeds, appearing in control. But what's reality? Signals from Mars take about 12 minutes at light speed, so screens show what happened 12 minutes prior.
If problems occur, reaction commands take another 12 minutes to reach Mars. 24 minutes round trip.
Yet the actual descent from Mars's atmosphere takes just 6 minutes.
Meaning the landing's fate was sealed before signals even reached halfway back.
Ironically, knowing they couldn't intervene, scientists ate peanuts superstitiously to boost success odds. Because during the Ranger missions at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the first 6 attempts all failed. And during the 7th successful attempt, an engineer happened to bring some peanuts to the control room.
Since then, peanuts have become a mascot for every landing mission.
So why would these otherwise rational and serious rocket scientists place their certainty on tiny peanuts? Human ancestors who weren't afraid of the unknown became food for jungle beasts, while those who avoided uncertainty lived longer and passed their genes to us. Therefore, humans are naturally filled with fear towards uncertain things. And throughout everyone's upbringing, various exercises and exams subtly make us believe every problem has an answer. Over time, we've lost the ability to coexist with the unknown, seeking only formulaic approaches, shortcuts, and opportunism. That bag of peanuts is proof. And the desire for certainty leads us to pursue seemingly safe solutions. Pharmaceutical companies are keen on developing generic drugs, masking differences in effectiveness through packaging variations. TV directors use decades-old tropes trying to recreate a classic. But clearly, only by daring to dance with uncertainty can breakthroughs be found in the status quo. As Nobel laureate Richard Feynman once said, "I think the unknown makes life more interesting. It's better than living with potentially wrong answers." However, we must also recognize that, like some people get anxious if they don't check the weather before going out, some can't sleep before exam results, others only feel at ease after the plane lands. No matter how mild the uncertainty, we all feel uneasy. So, how can we adapt to uncertainty? The key is figuring out what truly causes unease. When you're scared due to uncertainty, try asking yourself two questions. One, what's the worst case scenario? How likely is that to happen? And the other is, what's the best possible outcome? This helps you identify what truly deserves alertness. Then you can use two common methods from rocket science, adding redundancy and exceeding safety margins to reduce risk. What is redundancy? Redundancy isn't about being redundant. In rocket science, redundancy means creating backups to prevent a single failure from dooming the entire mission. We often create redundancy in daily life too, like a spare tire in your car or emergency brakes, designed for blowouts or brake failures. But even though redundancy is a great safeguard, it follows the law of diminishing returns, meaning beyond a certain point, each additional investment yields progressively smaller benefits. For example, a Boeing 747 could theoretically have 24 engines instead of 4. But then each passenger would pay $10,000 more for economy class, making it unaffordable. So what's a safety margin? The author defines safety margins as calculated values, like when scientists calculate theoretical heat shield thickness, then build it thicker to handle worse than expected space conditions. You can intentionally add safety margins in life too.
Say your commute takes 30 minutes, but for important meetings, leave earlier to handle unexpected delays.
We've discussed navigating uncertainty to confidently handle unknown risks. Next, you'll learn to make deductions from first principles, the key to revolutionary innovation. So what are first principles? Aristotle first proposed first principles thinking, defining it as the fundamental basis for understanding things. French scientist Descartes described it as systematically doubting everything doubtable until reaching undeniable truth. First principles have two enemies. We've always done it this way, and others do it this way.
The first makes us slaves to habit. The second avoids the pain of being different, but also misses breakthrough opportunities.
Elon Musk is a devoted practitioner, founding SpaceX to colonize Mars using first principles. But the first problem for Mars missions: no money for rockets. You should know, back then in the US market, 2 rockets cost a staggering $130 million. And that was just for the launch vehicles, not including the spacecraft itself. Even buying decommissioned intercontinental ballistic missiles from Russia required $20 million. With such costs, colonizing Mars was just empty talk. So on his return flight, Musk decided to break the "we've always done it this way" mentality. Innovative, paradigm-shifting, he bypassed aerospace's outsourcing tradition to build rockets from scratch. At SpaceX, about 80% of rocket components are made in-house, enabling strict control over cost, quality, and timelines. Musk also avoided the others do it this way trap. By making rockets reusable, he slashed per-launch costs. Though physically possible, this was incredibly difficult operationally. As a SpaceX press release put it, landing rockets is like balancing a rubber broom in your hand during a storm. But first principles thinking sustained SpaceX researchers through failures. In December 2015, SpaceX made history by landing Falcon 9, embodying first principles. This innovation slashed spaceflight costs dramatically. For ordinary people, too, first principles thinking brings huge benefits. And, like when thirsty outdoors without a cup, first principles reveal you just need a water container. So a folded leaf, bamboo section, or cleaned bag becomes your cup. This liberates you from fixed thinking patterns. First principles yield disruptive inferences, but not all can be tested, like absolute zero being unattainable, or perfect vacuum's astronomical cost. That's when thought experiments become crucial. Thought experiments are rational activities conducted purely in the mind. They require constructing a parallel universe with idealized instruments and subjects for pure theoretical operations. For instance, imagine finding a fulcrum in space to lift Earth, or throwing a bowling ball in perfect vacuum. Einstein credited thought experiments for nearly all his major achievements. Like imagining someone in free fall inside a sealed room. Could they feel their weight? That led to general relativity. Or picturing chasing a light beam to see stationary light, which inspired special relativity. Through thought experiments, scientists transcend routine thinking, becoming active interveners rather than passive observers. So what makes a successful thought experiment? First, rekindle curiosity. In efficiency-driven work, many find satisfaction kicking off tasks. Curiosity seems inefficient, so gets sidelined. Yet curiosity births thought experiments. Make it habitual to activate them anytime. Second, embrace boredom. We prefer distraction's certainty over boredom's uncertainty, even seeing idle time as wasteful. But research shows boredom shifts brains from convergent to divergent thinking, freely connecting disparate ideas. Fertile ground for thought experiments. Third, play combinatorial games. Einstein saw combinatorial play as essential to creative thought. Combine car and boat to invent amphibious vehicles. Or like Darwin drawing evolution insights from geology and economics. Combinational play applies to people too. When diverse disciplines combine, they create synergy where 1 + 1 exceeds 2, expanding thought experiment possibilities endlessly. Finally, maintain beginner's mind. As Zen master Shunryo Suzuki said, "In beginner's mind there are many possibilities. In expert's mind, few." Beginners, less constrained by past authority, stand outside systems seeing flaws clearly. Through thought experiments, you test inferences in idealized environments. Next, you need to apply moonshot thinking to achieve goals in real-world environments. Completing this step truly breaks cognitive boundaries. So what is moonshot thinking? In 1969, Armstrong achieved humanity's first true moon landing. Before that, when ancestors pioneered unknown paths, like discovering fire, inventing steam engines, fighting for slaves' freedom and women's suffrage, they were essentially moonshotting. Moonshot thinking means pursuing seemingly impossible goals and doing everything possible to make them happen. Most great achievements involve moonshot thinking, as it forces first principles reasoning and disruptive innovation. Why do I say that? Imagine your goal is improving car safety. What would you do? You'd identify safety hazards and gradually improve designs to reduce accidents and fatalities. But if eliminating all accidents is your goal, you must question every premise, including drivers and roads, while moonshot thinking lets you soar above competitors. And high-flying businesses often outperform
Because at high altitude, engine failure allows gliding to safety.
but at low altitude, continuing flight becomes far less likely. Hence, SMEs and sunset industries generally have weaker risk resilience. If you want moonshot thinking, you must learn to navigate between divergent and convergent thinking. First, divergent thinking, generating ideas freely without preconceptions, like a fly bumping in a jar. During divergence, we ignore constraints, feasibility, or budgets, accepting any emerging idea. It's the gateway to creativity, enhancing innovative solutions and new connections. To activate divergent thinking, shut off your internal valve of rational thought. Ditch spreadsheets and formulas. Let your mind explore absurdities beyond control, blurring fantasy-reality boundaries. For example, when you want to climb a mountain, you can imagine hundreds of ways, not just hiking, driving, or taking a cable car. These conventional ways correspond to convergent thinking, which lets us evaluate what's easy and what's feasible. Convergent thinking is like multiple choice questions. You can only choose from a few predetermined options and can't write a new answer. Professor Justin Berg from Stanford University once said that relying solely on convergent thinking is dangerous because you only rely on past experiences, but future success may differ from past successes. But this isn't about abandoning convergent thinking. Rather, it's about using it at the right time. In practical applications, we need both the idealism of divergent thinking and the pragmatism of convergent thinking. The former is the starting point of creativity, because in the initial stages of idea formation, it's hard to judge what's useful and what's not, so it's better not to make selections yet. The latter is the bridge from ideas to implementation. Ideas that haven't undergone convergent thinking assessment are often hard to realize. Therefore, the best environment to foster creativity is cycling between divergent and convergent thinking. When an idea passes various tests and is about to move forward, the author instead suggests stepping back and examining the raw materials using backward reasoning. Notably, backward reasoning isn't about using existing resources to drive imagination. It's about letting our imagination drive existing resources. How specifically to do this? We need to imagine our ideal job and sketch a roadmap to achieve that goal. For example, NASA started from the goal of astronauts successfully landing on the moon and worked backward to determine the steps needed to get there. First, launch a rocket from the ground to send astronauts into Earth orbit for a spacewalk. Then rendezvous and dock with a target vehicle in orbit. Next, send a manned spacecraft to lunar orbit, orbit the moon, and finally return to Earth. Only after all these incremental steps in the roadmap were completed did NASA attempt the moon landing. In daily life, we can also decompose complex tasks using a roadmap and list the resources and prerequisites needed for each subtask. After preparing the roadmap, now it's time to adopt the monkey-first strategy. What is the monkey-first strategy? Imagine this scenario. Your company just assigned you to lead a highly challenging project. You must train a monkey to stand on a pedestal reciting Shakespeare. What would you do? If you're like most people, you'd start by building the pedestal. Because, finding a talking monkey is nearly impossible, let alone training it for Shakespeare. But you've got to do something, right? So you work on the pedestal, but the problem is pedestals can be built anytime. Well, finding a talking monkey is the real key to success. The more time spent on the pedestal, the harder to address what truly matters, that sunk cost. If humans irrationally cling to their investments, the deeper they go, the harder to change course. The right approach is monkey first. Tackle the hardest part of your moonshot first and maintain that mindset. You need termination metrics, clear criteria for when to proceed versus abandon. Set these standards up front while your mind's clear before emotional or financial investment triggers sunk cost fallacies. In part 1, we learned breaking cognitive boundaries requires dancing with uncertainty and making it an advantage. Second, make innovative deductions from first principles, then verify through thought experiments. Finally, guided by moonshot thinking, inventory required resources and roadmap. By now, your creativity is ignited. Now we'll cover part 2, accelerating idea implementation. Many implementation struggles occur because we obsess over right answers before identifying the right problem. For example, a nitpicking collaborator might not dislike your plan. They might just feel unappreciated helping you. Here you should address their emotional needs, not just optimize the solution. Thus, when stuck, reframing the problem to find the root cause becomes critical. Next, let's discuss how to reframe problems. Think carefully, and you'll realize, whenever we get familiar with a problem and think we have the right answer, we stop seeing other options. Like sticking to your usual route, even if it's longer, unwilling to explore alternatives. This tendency is called the Einstellung effect, a legacy of our education system. In school, teachers train us to answer questions, not reframe them. Typical exercises contain all constraints and known information. fully predefined. Students dissect these prepackaged problems, plug them into memorized formulas to get correct answers. This approach completely disconnects from reality. In adult life, problems come to us half-formed. We must discover, define, and redefine them ourselves. But once we identify a problem, traditional education reflexively makes us solution mode.
Instead of asking whether better problems exist to solve.
Though we pay lip service to finding right problems, we default to past failed strategies. Research shows 85% of 106 executives from 91 companies across 17 countries admit their organizations suck at problem definition, driving up costs. When I'm stilling blocks progress, reframing breaks through. Like Mars landings. After tripod failures, everyone tried designing better three-legged landers. One person reframed it, how to overcome gravity for safe landing, leading to ditching tripods entirely. Solution: wrap the probe in giant airbags to bounce 30 to 40 times on Mars before stopping. This approach made Mars Pathfinder's landing successful. Next time you rush to solve a problem, resist the urge. Instead, try discovering problems. Ask yourself, am I asking the right question? What happens to the problem if I change my perspective? After clarifying these, let's discuss uncovering truth for wiser decisions. First, observe an interesting phenomenon. If you're a scientist trained in objectivity, you'd support arguments with cold, hard facts, expecting immediate acceptance, like proving climate change exists or that a company's uncreative strategy won't work. The best approach seems flooding them with data. But often this fails because minds aren't led by facts. As John Adams said, facts are stubborn things, but our minds are more stubborn. Even open-minded people can't always dismiss doubts when faced with compelling facts. Our brains enable reason, but also distort judgment with subjectivity. This stems partly from confirmation bias. What is confirmation bias? It means once you hold a belief, you favor information confirming it while ignoring contradictory evidence. Like believing in aliens, you collect supporting proofs but disregard disconfirming data. Rocket scientists are rational experts trained to judge based on objective data. Next, we'll find anti-bias methods from their toolkit. First, develop multiple hypotheses instead of one. With only one hypothesis, it easily masters you. With multiple hypotheses, you reduce dependence and avoid premature commitment. Scientists are parents to hypotheses, and as parents to all, can't favor any child. Innovative synergy conclusion: multiple hypotheses also spark new ideas through contradictory fusion, leading to brilliant solutions. If you can't generate multiple hypotheses, you're likely focused only on immediate facts while ignoring others hidden in blind spots. Just like the saying, a leaf blocks your view, searching for overlooked details helps form hypotheses, but doesn't guarantee full objectivity. You might unconsciously fixate on one hypothesis and miss others for various reasons. So after having multiple hypotheses, you must do the unthinkable: kill them. In daily life and work, we instinctively want to prove ourselves right. Every confirmation feels good, rewarding us with dopamine. So how can we adapt to uncertainty? The key is identifying what truly causes unease. When fearful due to uncertainty, ask two questions. 1. What's the worst case scenario? How likely is that to happen? And what's the best possible outcome? This helps identify what truly deserves vigilance. Then use two rocket science methods: redundancy and safety margins, to reduce risk. What is redundancy? Redundancy isn't about being redundant. In rocket science, redundancy means creating backups to prevent single failures from dooming missions. We create redundancy daily, like spare tires or emergency brakes for blowouts or failures. But though redundancy safeguards well, it follows the law of diminishing returns, meaning beyond a point, each added investment yields progressively smaller benefits. For example, a Boeing 747 could have 24 engines instead of 4.
But that raised economy tickets by $10,000, making them unaffordable.
So what's a safety margin? The author defines safety margins as calculated values, like building rocket heat shields thicker than theoretical specs to handle worse than expected space conditions. In daily life, you can intentionally add safety margins too. For example, If your commute normally takes 30 minutes, leave earlier for important meetings to handle unexpected delays. We've covered navigating uncertainty to confidently handle unknown risks. Next, he'll make deductions from first principles, finding keys to revolutionary innovation. So, what are first principles? Aristotle first proposed first principles thinking, defining it as the fundamental basis for understanding things.
French scientist Descartes described it as systematically doubting everything doubtable until reaching undeniable truth.
First principles have two enemies. We've always done it this way, and others do it this way.
The first enslaves us to habit. The second avoids the pain of being different. Missing breakthrough opportunities.
Elon Musk is a devoted practitioner, founding SpaceX to colonize Mars using first principles.
But the first problem for Mars missions, no money for rockets. Back then in the US market, 2 rockets cost $130 million, just for launch vehicles, not spacecraft. Even decommissioned Russian missiles cost $20 million. With such costs, colonizing Mars was impossible. So on his return flight, Musk broke the "we've always done it this way" mentality. He bypassed aerospace's outsourcing tradition to build rockets from scratch. At SpaceX, 80% of components are made in-house for strict cost, quality, and schedule control. Musk also avoided the others do it this way trap. By making rockets reusable, he slashed per launch costs. Though physically possible, this was operationally extremely difficult. As SpaceX described, landing rockets is like balancing a rubber broom in your hand during a storm. However, it was the top-down application of first principles that enabled SpaceX researchers to endure the despair of failure.
In December 2015, they made history by successfully landing the Falcon 9 rocket for the first time, embodying first principles thinking.
This innovative mindset allowed SpaceX to dramatically reduce spaceflight costs. For ordinary people, too, learning first principles thinking brings huge benefits. For instance, if you're thirsty outdoors without a cup, first principles reveal you just need a water container. So a folded leaf, bamboo section, or cleaned bag becomes your cup. This liberates you from fixed thinking patterns. First principles yield disruptive inferences, but not all can be tested, like absolute zero being unattainable or perfect vacuum's astronomical cost. That's when thought experiments become crucial. Well, thought experiments are rational activities conducted purely in the mind. They require constructing a parallel universe with idealized instruments and subjects for pure theoretical operations. For example, imagine finding a fulcrum in space to lift Earth, or throwing a bowling ball in perfect vacuum. Einstein credited thought experiments for nearly all his major achievements. Like imagining someone in free fall inside the sealed room. Could they feel their weight? That led to general relativity. Or picturing chasing a light beam to see stationary light, which inspired special relativity. Through thought experiments, scientists transcend routine thinking, becoming active interveners rather than passive observers. So, what makes a successful thought experiment? First, rekindle curiosity. In efficiency-driven work, many find satisfaction taking off tasks. Curiosity seems inefficient, so gets sidelined. Yet curiosity births thought experiments. Make it habitual to activate them anytime. Second, embrace boredom. We prefer the certainty of distractions over boredom's uncertainty, even seeing idle time as wasteful. But research shows boredom shifts brains to divergent thinking, freely connecting disparate ideas, fertile ground for thought experiments. In aviation terms, a near miss is an almost collision narrowly avoided, meaning the spacecraft came dangerously close but luck prevailed. Near misses are rich data sources. They occur far more frequently than actual accidents, with minimal damage. By examining near misses, we gather crucial data without suffering failure's costs. Based on near misses, we design thought experiments to test hypotheses, progressively approaching truth. Apply this daily. Analyze mock exam errors, review work flaws, or examine small arguments. These near misses prevent larger crises. By now, you've gained rocket scientist thinking abilities. Consistently training with these 9 principles will stop the world shaping your thoughts. Instead, you'll shape the world, gaining courage to challenge impossibilities and wings to leap cognitive boundaries. Which rocket scientist technique did you find most helpful? Feel free to share in the comments. That concludes our interpretation of Think Like a Rocket Scientist. Reading notes are below the audio. See you next time.